Have you ever wondered how people used to keep food fresh before refrigerators existed? Or better yet, how some still do? In a world obsessed with convenience, digital timers, and smart kitchens, there's a group quietly living without any of it. No fridge humming in the background, no frozen dinners, no late-night trips to grab something cold. The Amish, with their traditional ways and off-grid lifestyle, have found a way to not just survive, but thrive, without one of the most common appliances in modern homes. So, how do they do it? What's their secret to keeping food safe, fresh, and ready without modern refrigeration? And could we actually learn something from it? Number 1. Community over convenience. In today's world, the refrigerator is more than just a household appliance. It's a daily necessity, a silent storage space that lets us forget about time, decay, and season. But in Amish communities, the rhythm is completely different. The central pillar of their lifestyle isn't based on keeping things cold or delaying spoilage. Instead, it's built around people, around trust, relationships, and collective responsibility. When someone in an Amish household needs milk or eggs, they don't reach for their car keys or open an app. They step outside, maybe walk a few hundred yards, and knock on a neighbor's door. The exchange isn't transactional, it's social, warm, and human. That regular interaction keeps their communities tightly knit and creates a natural safety net that replaces the need for personal stockpiles or mechanical storage. Food for them is a shared experience. If a family butchers a pig or cow, they don't hoard it. There's no race to freeze everything or vacuum seal it. Instead, they distribute the meat within the community. Sometimes that looks like a neighbor showing up with a large pot and leaving with dinner for their household. Other times, it's a communal gathering with tables full of food, everyone bringing something, everyone taking part. And that's not just practical, it's intentional. The Amish prioritize relationships over possessions. They'd rather give than waste. There's no fear of not having enough because the community fills in the gaps. This mindset also prevents overconsumption. There's no point in buying more than needed when there's nowhere to keep it long term. Without a fridge, you live in the now, you cook what you eat what you cook, and you don't worry about saving leftovers for a rainy day. When storage is social, not mechanical, people become your backup plan. It's a kind of freedom that's hard to grasp in our hyper-independent culture. But for the Amish, it's completely natural. Number 2, clay pots and cool crocks. Long before refrigeration became a fixture in modern kitchens, people had to rely on creativity and environmental knowledge to keep their food from spoiling. And the Amish have never stopped perfecting those old techniques. One of the most ingenious methods still used in their communities today is evaporative cooling through clay pots and ceramic crocks. While it may sound primitive to someone used to stainless steel appliances and digital temperature control, the method is both effective and remarkably sustainable. It uses the natural principles of evaporation, insulation, and Earth's stable temperatures to create small-scale cooling systems that work without a single watt of electricity. A typical setup involves 2 unglazed clay pots, one smaller and one larger, where the smaller pot sits inside the larger one. The space between the pots is filled with damp sand, and the entire thing is covered with a moist cloth. As the water and the sand begins to evaporate, it pulls heat away from the inner chamber, dropping the temperature inside the smaller pot significantly. It's a self-regulating system that works best in dry climates, but even in more humid regions, it can help extend the shelf life of perishables like milk, cheese, or fresh produce. Amish households often use variations of this system to keep butter from melting during summer, or to stop fruits like berries from spoiling after harvest. Another equally practical tool is the ceramic crock, especially the kind partially buried in shaded pantry floors or even outdoors in sheltered root cellars. These thick-walled containers are naturally insulating and can stay several degrees cooler than the surrounding air. They're ideal for storing pickled vegetables, fermented foods, or even small amounts of dairy. The combination of shade, moisture from the earth, and the dense structure of the crock creates a microenvironment that slows down bacterial growth without requiring refrigeration. What's especially impressive is how seamlessly these methods fit into the Amish rhythm of life. There's no switch to flip, no device to maintain, just simple physics applied with purpose. These cooling systems don't just preserve food, they also preserve a way of living that values self-reliance, low impact, and deep knowledge of the natural world. In that context, clay pots and cool crocks aren't outdated. They're timeless. Number 3, small batch cooking and zero waste. In Amish households, the kitchen isn't a place of excess. It's a space of intentional rhythm where every meal is prepared with purpose and every ingredient is accounted for. Unlike modern homes where cooking often means big batches, freezer bags, and leftovers stacked in plastic containers, the Amish approach is refreshingly minimalistic. Meals are cooked in small portions, carefully sized to match what the family will eat that day. There's no reliance on a refrigerator to save what's uneaten, because the goal is to finish what's served, not to stretch it into multiple days. This small batch style of cooking is deeply connected to their philosophy of stewardship and gratitude. When you harvest your own vegetables, grind your own flour, or raise the animal that's now your dinner, you're naturally more careful with how you use food. Making only what's needed isn't just practical, it's respectful. And when leftovers do happen, they're never treated as waste. Cold slices of roasted meat might become part of a sandwich the next morning, or a spoonful of cooked vegetables might find its way into a pot of soup simmering over the stove by lunchtime. If something doesn't get eaten by people, it's often shared with livestock or added to the compost pile to return nutrients to the garden. Every piece of food has a destination, and nothing is forgotten in the back of a fridge. That's partly because there is no fridge to forget it in. There's no safety net for overcooking, which encourages precision and discipline. Recipes are simple, yes, but not sloppy. Meals aren't rushed or thrown together. They're planned based on what's fresh, what's seasonal, and what can be finished before it turns. This daily cycle of fresh preparation naturally limits how much can go bad. There's no "we'll eat it later" mentality. If it's not for now, it's preserved properly or passed along. It's a way of life that avoids food fatigue, too. The Amish don't spend days reheating the same dish. They move forward with each meal, clean slate, full table. And because there's less food waste, there's less reason to own appliances meant to delay spoilage. Their kitchens work in real time, not borrowed time, and that changes everything about how food is valued. Number 4, oil preservation and fat sealing. Long before cold storage became a part of everyday life, people had to find clever ways to keep food from spoiling, especially meat and dairy. Among the most effective of these was the use of natural fats and oils to seal food from air and bacteria. The Amish, grounded in time-honored traditions and guided by practical knowledge passed down over generations, continue to rely on this method, not out of necessity alone, but because it works remarkably well. In their kitchens, fat sealing isn't seen as old-fashioned. It's seen as reliable, efficient, and entirely aligned with their off-grid, waste-free way of living. The process starts after the meat is cooked, usually fried, roasted, or slowly simmered. Once cooled slightly but still warm, it's packed tightly into glass jars or earthenware containers. Then comes the key step, pouring hot rendered lard or tallow over the meat until it's fully submerged. As the fat cools and solidifies, it forms an airtight barrier that prevents oxygen from reaching the food beneath. With no air, bacteria and mold have no path to develop, allowing the meat to stay preserved for weeks or even months, depending on the storage conditions. This is especially common with pork, sausage links, and shredded beef, but it's also used for duck and other fatty meats that adapt well to the method. Fat sealing isn't limited to meat. Amish households also use clarified butter, ghee, as a way to extend the shelf life of dairy. Without milk solids, ghee can sit on a shelf without going rancid. It's not just for spreading on bread either. It's used in cooking, baking, and pan frying, giving food a rich flavor and long-lasting usefulness. Herbs and hot peppers are sometimes stored in oil as well, infusing the fat while preserving the produce. Even cheeses can be submerged in oil to delay spoilage, with certain types taking on more depth and taste the longer they rest. This technique doesn't rely on any machines or external energy, just knowledge, patience, and attention to detail. And unlike refrigeration, which disconnects people from the natural rhythms of food, oil preservation brings them closer. It requires you to think ahead, to respect the ingredients, and to use what you've stored with care. For the Amish, it's not about mimicking modern convenience. It's about mastering methods that have kept families fed for centuries. Number 5. Living without expecting cold. The Amish way of life doesn't revolve around avoiding modern appliances. It simply functions on an entirely different foundation, one where cold storage was never part of the equation in the first place. Rather than constantly adapting to the absence of a refrigerator, their entire approach to food, cooking, and planning is structured in a way that makes refrigeration unnecessary. They don't see a fridge as something missing. They see no reason to need one at all. Every aspect of how they grow, store, prepare, and consume food is rooted in room temperature living, where natural cycles and simple habits guide every step. Take fresh milk, for example. In a typical Amish home, milk from the cow is used that same day. It might be consumed directly, turned into butter, or used in baking. There's no thought of keeping it for days. If it's not going to be used right away, it's processed, soured intentionally, turned into cheese, or shared with neighbors. Speaking of cheese, even that's handled differently. Amish families don't rely on the kind of factory-aged blocks you find in stores. Instead, they make cheese in stages, soft and young at first, then aged in cool pantries or cellars. It's eaten in rotation, portioned according to the family's needs and what they know they can consume without it spoiling. Eggs follow a similar pattern. Because they're not washed right away, the natural protective coating, called the bloom, keeps them safe at room temperature for weeks. That makes refrigeration unnecessary and keeps the flow of food simple and direct. Sauces, dips, and dishes that require chilling aren't common in Amish kitchens. Meals are built from ingredients that stay stable without constant cooling. Breads, dried beans, fresh vegetables, smoked meats, and fermented items. When it comes time to butcher an animal or bake a large batch of pies, nothing is left to chance. There's always a plan, whether that means canning the meat, freezing it with harvested ice, smoking it for long-term storage, or organizing a shared meal with multiple families. The same goes for baking. A dozen pies might be made in one afternoon, but they're likely destined for a church gathering, a community event, or a neighbor who just had a baby, not stacked in a fridge to be picked at over a week. This lifestyle isn't reactive, it's proactive. It doesn't wait for things to spoil so they can be rescued by machines. Instead, it's built around predictability, routine, and intentional use. There's no scrambling to store leftovers or hoping the fridge keeps things safe. The mindset is one of balance, knowing how much is enough, how long it lasts, and what to do before time runs out. For the Amish, food is not a puzzle of preservation. It's a living rhythm, and they've simply learned to keep pace without needing the hum of a compressor in the background.